All right, I think we're back to being live. We had a little mishap there, but we seem to be back. So sorry about that, everyone.
Whoopsie.
But yeah, it seems to be working. Not really sure exactly what happened, but some computer malfunction.
No idea.
Yeah, we were talking about recital music, but I think that moment has died.
Right. It died with the stream.
So, one other thing that I did want to talk about is I think my future trombone case has just been released.
Oh yeah, we talked about this earlier today. What was it called again?
I don't know what the specific model is necessarily. I'm pulling it up now. You're talking about the case for jazz trombone model MB?
That one.
Let's see if I can throw that up here so you can kind of see it. Oh, that's terrible. That's not helpful at all. You can kind of see this case. Because I've always wanted a case like this that was essentially a like nice case that was designed for a small bore jazz trombone and nothing bigger. Because right now I use like the case that came with my Edwards.
Right.
So it's like a large bore, fits an 8.5-inch bell sort of case, and then, wide slide, all of that. Where this is designed specifically just for
the little guys.
just for the smaller horns.
Yeah.
And
nice.
so it's essentially, especially for like playing the Bach 16, it's basically exactly big enough but no bigger. So it's like, even we talked about it a little bit earlier via text this morning, but it's even too small for your Edwards small bore.
Right, which is tragic.
Technically, it might still fit.
Yeah, I'd have to give it the old shove test.
Right.
I know right now my carry case that I use daily is definitely too small for the Edwards, and I just shove it in there anyway, and it's cool.
Yeah.
But it's one of those like super old like fake alligator skin cases.
Yeah, and that's like if I have to go super small, like in like a trunk situation, I might use like the original Bach 16 case.
Is that very small?
Yeah, and not protective and terrible and all of those sorts of things. But this one, I don't know. I think it's going to be, my future case. I'm not 100% sure. I don't like spending a lot of money on cases. That's always like a struggle.
Yeah, it's kind of like a funny thing to spend a lot of money on.
Right. Especially because this one would be so expensive that it's all like I could probably get another trombone almost for that price.
Oh, easily, yeah.
And I was thinking about getting the carbon fiber option as well. To just like go all in.
You wouldn't go with teal?
So carbon fiber underneath the cover. And I would not make it teal. You know what I want to do?
What do you want to do?
Low brass U colors.
Oh yeah, we said this already. Yeah, so like blue and gray.
Yeah, because I think 1, white is not an option. 2, white would be a terrible idea.
It would get dirty.
It would get dirty. So I think just like a 2-tone navy blue and gray would just be really nice.
I would definitely do the teal just because that's one of Christine's favorite colors, and we have a bunch of like color accents around our house that are teal. And so I imagine that if I bought a teal trombone case,
it would be allowed out.
Leave it in the living room. Yeah, exactly. And it could be part of the the decor, and I wouldn't have to hide it like I do with my other not as conventionally attractive cases.
Yeah.
They have to go in closets and places like that.
In your armoire?
In my trombone closet, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I am talking about.
That's not where the cases go. The cases go
okay.
elsewhere. Some of them get shoved next to trombone closet. Some of them are shoved in my actual closet.
I
where,
see.
Like, clothes go. It's a messy situation with no one wins.
Yeah.
But the trombones are all very comfortable. They're like free-range chickens in the trombone closet.
Yeah, I definitely need I need to figure out something different for my life, because for a long time, the main trombone that was leaving my house was just, a small bore. And I never took it out of that case. I have all my accessories I needed for, cover band gigs and things like that. All of that, my iPad was always in there. Now my iPad is floating around in a way that's probably going to get left and, not used. But it's especially right now with protocols of not being right next to the student always. It's like I really like having the iPad so I can pull up what they're working on and put it on a different stand, be a little bit further away. So yeah, I'm using it all the time for everything, and it's going to get not like lost, but I'm gonna forget it for something. I think so. But yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I think that this would be good. Chris says that it looks very light. Yeah, I think it would be pretty light, and I looked into it a little bit with the carbon fiber option. According to Horn Guys, the carbon fiber option is not lighter, but it is stronger and the same weight.
Huh.
So I think especially because these sorts of cases are kind of lifelong cases. If I'm going to do it, I should just go ahead and get the carbon fiber instead of the fiberglass.
Definitely.
But it is an upcharge. I'm not exactly sure how much it would be, but probably like around $700.
Oh boy.
Which is like definitely a lot.
That's a lot.
But I mean, it could be more expensive if you go leather, which I will not be going leather. But yeah, I think just like I'll either go all blue or maybe I'll go gray and blue. I haven't decided. Also haven't 100% decided on getting it, but I saw it for the first time today and I was very excited. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't really think like a premium case like that really existed before this one. Like that sort of like a small bore tenor trombone case that fits nothing more than a small bore tenor trombone.
Right, they're usually designed for bigger things, and it's like, oh yeah, the small bore fits in it. And,
right.
I mean, you're asking the wrong. Like, I'm the wrong person to ask about cases. You know the story of how my current soft case came to be, but I have not spent a lot of money on trombone cases. Actually,
I haven't either, to be fair.
I think I have spent exactly $0 on trombone cases in my career so far.
I have spent more than zero. I mean, I don't know if the Edwards came with that case or if that was an add-on. I don't remember. It was definitely a part of that purchase. I feel like I just had, the case was free, aka the trombone was more expensive because of it. But I did buy a double gig bag. That was one that I bought, which was awesome for like undergrad. There's like nothing better than that case. I probably wasn't using it much by the time that you got to North Texas. I could have. I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
Probably not a ton, because I used it.
I didn't see a lot of trombone cases from you that year.
No, because I was mostly done with everything at that point in time.
And the only time that we played trombone together was at your house, and so all your horns were already out.
Right.
Or we played in the dark dungeon of Abbey Underground.
I would have probably had the double case there, so I could have, or the double bag. So I could have.
I think I saw that.
You've probably seen it, and that's what I'm using now for going to teach, so I can bring bass and tenor with me. But it's such an awkward case. It's an Altieri, and it's essentially not balanced, because the way it works is like the bells, with the backpack straps, the bells are to my left and the slides are to my right, and it just like leans. It's leaning and preening the whole time. It just is always, so it's kind of just always uncomfortable. It's not so heavy, so it's not that bad, but it's definitely not designed super, super well. I've thought about getting a double trombone case, but I think that the weight of that would just be too much.
It would just be a bunch.
So the gig bag option would probably be to go to a Glen Cronkite, which I could do that, but I think that the double trombone thing is not going to be a problem for me forever. That is, I don't think it's worth investing in another double bag when I have one just to get a slightly better one.
Right.
It is convenient when I do recording sessions and I bring a bunch of horns, though.
Yes, that helps.
But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think that this case will be in my future. I feel pretty good about it, but we'll have to see on that. I guess one other case that I did buy, because you were talking about how you spent $0 on cases. I did buy my bass trombone ProTech, because when I bought my bass trombone, it didn't come with a case. Josh has a question, which I can't seem to. There it is. Any tips for range building? Do you want to start this one off, Connor?
Yeah, actually, I was hoping we would get to that.
I forgot that one came earlier before the crash.
I sent you an email with the screenshot of all of our questions pre-crash. So if you want to pull that up, I did save that intel, and I was going to tell you that, but I'm glad Josh brought it up. Tips for range building. I will probably tell you the same things that Zach will tell you, and the things that I've been told is as someone who I don't have like the world's greatest high or low range. I'm not winning any awards in either direction, but the notes that I can play are the notes that I spend a lot of time playing. I mean,
you're being a little modest, to be fair. I'm not going to just let you have Connor Eisenmenger slander saying that you're somehow bad at range related things. You get around the horn.
Yeah, I get around the horn fine.
I've heard you play A's and things like that. You get up there.
Okay.
And on the low range as well. I mean, I know you're not a bass trombonist, but
yeah, I'm really out of practice on my pedals right now.
But for a while you were doing some jazz large bore things, and you were playing lines down there.
Definitely. Okay, so then to clarify that, the notes that aren't speaking right now in my routine that I probably need to get back, the reason that they aren't speaking well when I go to check on them is because of just that. I'm going to check on them every now and then. It's not something that I do daily. Right now, my daily routine is more structured around other things, whereas there was a time in my life academically where I was being asked to, in my coursework in my ensembles, to play lots of high notes and lots of low notes. And so in order to do that effectively when I was being assessed for performance, all of that time that I had in between those assessments, I spent playing a whole bunch of high notes and a whole bunch of low notes. And I'll let Zach take it over. The range building exercise that I think both of us generally agree on and enjoy is that one that Zach Steele taught you.
Yeah, that definitely was a fun one.
Do you still do that one?
I still do that one, yes. So
nice.
Zach Steele was one of our trombone colleagues. We were in school together, and I think he taught me this when we were both freshmen, and it was just basically doing arpeggios. Let me play a little bit. We have that technology set up.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be off screen just for a second because there's not a better way to do this.
Oh, that's okay.
But I'm so sorry.
Just like that.
Yeah, so up and down the horn, kind of starting mid-ish range, going high range, down to low, back to mid. And I kind of altered it. I don't think Zach Steele went all the way down, if I remember correctly, but it's been so long at this point. But yeah, especially I always talk about one of the best things for me about going to the University of North Texas when I was younger especially, was there was always someone who's better than me at something. They may not have been better at me at every single thing on the trombone, music, tuba, whatever you want to call it. But there's always somebody who's doing something that I couldn't do or that I needed to work on or something along those lines. And at that time, Zach Steele just had a way better high range than me. And so I was just like, how do you do that? What do you practice? And then he was just like, I practice this. It's like,
there you go.
All right, I'll practice that too. So yeah, there are lots of different ways to do it. Scales, arpeggios are kind of the best way, especially if you know all of them. And if you don't, you should know all of them. So you've been warned. So let's answer a couple of these other questions that came in. We could talk about range building forever. So Furman says, I'm saving up for a bone I can own personally, but I don't have any idea what a good bone is. What good bone is good to buy quality wise and price wise. Sorry, I think that was my own inability to read. I'll start this one off. This is like by saying that this is a rabbit hole. There's lots of ways we could talk about this, and the first thing that I would probably ask is, what type of playing do you hope to do?
What type of bands or like what groups are you playing in?
Don't lead the witness. Don't just
Oh, don't lead the witness. Okay.
Don't say what type of bands. It's just what types of groups. Is it a orchestra, band, a jazz group? It could be anything. It doesn't even have to be kind of the standard sort of things. Whatever that may be, what your, I hate to say career goals because it doesn't need to be that serious just yet, probably.
Right. But what type of trombone music do you like?
Right. That's where I would start. And if you have a favorite trombonist, or like let's say you just want to play like in a rock band, it's just like, well, let's look at rock bands with trombones. Like, what does Jimmy Pankow play? Maybe a trombone like that. Mm-hmm. Or if you say, oh, I just love listening to the New York Philharmonic, what type of trombone do the trombone players in that section play? Mm-hmm. That sort of thing. So I think that that's kind of a good place to start. That being said, there are some trombones that can essentially do everything, and some that maybe can't do everything.
Right.
I guess by that I just mean to valve or not to valve.
Yeah.
And a trombone with a valve can do everything a trombone without a valve can do, but not the other way around. But they also add a lot of cost to the price.
Mm-hmm. They're more expensive, and in certain situations you might end up not playing a lot of music that requires the valve, and then it just kind of was like it's an extra expense that maybe you didn't need.
Right.
So something to think about.
Yeah, so those are kind of the starting places. And price, again, that's a rabbit hole as well. I would suggest trying to buy a used trombone. I think that cuts down on the price.
Absolutely.
You can get a good trombone for sometimes under $1,000. I would say that, like, the sweet spot of without a valve is like maybe $800 to $1,200, like that sort of range. You can usually find something pretty good, and sometimes you can find something decent cheaper. But it's it gets harder and harder the cheaper you go. Mm-hmm. And with a valve, it's probably going to be at least $1,000, but maybe even closer to $1,500 or higher. And I guess we're speaking of U.S. dollars, and the used market is different everywhere, so that's part of it too. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I think the first question is, should you get a valve or not? And it really just depends on what you're trying to do. The valve is not necessary for a lot of things, but like if you're trying to go to school for music, probably, unless it's specifically jazz, you probably want to get a valve, because otherwise there are certain things that you just won't be able to play as well as others without a valve.
Mm-hmm. Right, you'll see lots of people in music school with a trombone with a valve, and they still play in jazz band. I mean, I played lead trombone in the jazz band in school on a trombone with a valve, and it was just because that was the one that we had, and it was totally cool.
Right, and that's kind of the point, is the instrument with the valve can do everything that a valveless instrument can do. Mm-hmm. It may not be the best option always. It may not be what you want to have. It may not be the optimal instrument, but it at least will work. So yeah, I think that's something to kind of think about. Let's get to Chris's question. Sorry, this might not make sense, but what's the best mouthpiece you can recommend for a first trombone player or a trombone player in general? That's a good question. I think the first thing is probably not the most expensive mouthpiece you can find on the internet. I would start with something a little bit more reasonable, but you still want to get a good quality mouthpiece. And my two brands of choice, and admittedly both Connor and I might be slightly biased, but I still will give two options or two brands to start out with, and that's Dennis Wick and Vincent Bach. To me, those are the two mouthpieces that you're generally going to get a pretty good mouthpiece, but it's not going to break the bank. So full disclosure, Connor and I are both Dennis Wick artists, play Dennis Wick mouthpieces. Here two on my desk right now. And I'm sure that there's one in that trombone behind you, Connor.
There is, yes.
So we play a lot of Dennis Wick stuff, and part of, at least for me, and I assume that you like this reason also, and I think we've talked about it, but I can't remember. Part of what attracted me to the Dennis Wick brand is that it's something I can recommend to students and not feel like they're, going to have to sell their Xbox to get.
Right. It's a good equitable option, and it's a quality option for it's.
You can spend $300 on a mouthpiece.
Right.
You probably don't need to, and it probably won't get you. It won't be three or four times the value of a Dennis Wick or a Vincent Bach.
Right.
Probably not starting out. So I guess then the next kind of question that's part of that is size. And kind of my go-to starting place is a 6.5. On a large bore, I guess, but maybe even smaller if it's a small bore. But a 6.5 overall is, without knowing what you're doing with it, a 6.5 is probably a pretty good choice. And so that, or in Dennis Wick, they don't do halves, but it's just a 6. So that's kind of I kind of call that the extra medium mouthpiece.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're doing, that could seem large, that could seem small. Like if you're talking to people who play a lot of small bores, play a lot of jazz stuff or commercial things, that's pretty big.
Right. They would say, wow, big setup.
Right. If you're talking to an orchestral trombonist, they would say, that's pretty small. So, depending on the situation, it could be big or small, but it's at least a decent starting place. And I started, when I started playing trombone, I started using a 6, a Dennis Wick actually. So, for anyone who thinks that the Dennis Wick, mouthpieces for me are new, the first trombone mouthpiece I ever bought was a Dennis Wick. The second trombone mouthpiece I ever bought was a Dennis Wick. The third was a mistake. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't a mistake. I think the third was a Griego.
Okay.
When I got my Edwards, it was a nice mouthpiece. I still have it, but I haven't played it since starting college, basically.
You bought a Griego when you bought the Edwards small bore,
and when I also bought the Edwards large bore.
Was it a 6?
No.
What was the Griego that you bought with the Edwards?
Which Edwards?
The small bore Edwards.
The small bore was an 11.
Okay.
And the New York blank, which is like the Bach-looking one. And then I got a 5 in, I believe it's the Deco blank, which is a somewhat unique shaped mouthpiece. So yeah, I played those mouthpieces for a while, basically until college, and was told to change. So the Dennis Wick mouthpieces, those were my first mouthpieces for large bore, and I bought a 6BL heavy top. That was my first mouthpiece because I thought that's what everybody in my high school was playing, but they all were playing 5BLs, but I didn't know that. So I got the wrong mouthpiece according to what everybody else was playing. But, it worked out great, and I still used it. I used it professionally for a little while as kind of an alternate mouthpiece, but I mostly play a 5. But I'm, entertaining ideas of a 4. But again, for a beginner, a 6 is a good start. If you're playing a small bore, maybe a 7. I would say 6 or 7. And it doesn't have to be those brands, but if you get some unmarked mouthpiece, it could be okay. Sometimes you play those and they're great.
Awesome.
But if you're buying a mouthpiece from Dennis Wick or Bach and it's a 6 or a 7, I think you're at least starting pretty well. But giving mouthpiece advice on the internet is like, I don't know what's a good way to put it, but it can be helpful. I'm not saying that it's incorrect or anything, but I don't know what you sound like. I don't know what instrument you're playing on. All those things do kind of play into it. What you hope to do, how developed of a player you are, all of those sorts of things. So we got some comments. Logan saying he's got a 360, so it's pointless anyway talking about selling his Xbox for a mouthpiece. But you might be able to sell a 360. I don't know what a used 360 goes for. You might be able to get a Dennis Wick or a Vincent Bach for that price. I don't know. And I will not be playing Sicko Mode. And the only reason is because of copyright stuff. It's not because I don't want to play Sicko Mode.
Sorry, we can't help you.
But we'll
think of something written either in 1925 or earlier, and we'll play it for you.
Within reason. I think let's. If you're gonna play it for him, I guess you can say anything.
We'll see. I'm gonna have to really stretch my knowledge of older tunes.
So Elijah says, "How do mouthpiece affect how you play?" Again, these rabbit hole questions.
That is a tricky question. I don't know how I would actually say how it affects it. All I know is that like they're different sizes, and that affects how I make a sound. But I don't really know how to articulate that.
I think the way that I would answer that question is, first off, the most important thing of your sound or how well you play or anything like that is you, the player. Then, so to me, how it's always been explained to me and how I kind of approach it is, I have this idea in my head of what I want to sound like, and then I basically try to find something, like I try to make that sound. If I'm not making that sound, what do I do? So trying different mouthpieces sometimes can help that. So that's essentially what I'm thinking with mouthpieces, but there's some general things, but they're not always true and not always true for everyone. So first of all, gotta shout out Logan for donating $2 to the stream. That's in fact our first stream donation.
That's very nice of you.
An Among Us stream. I've never actually played Among Us, but
I played it once.
You did? Maybe we'll do like a post stream at some point.
Definitely.
We could definitely make something happen.
I'll teach you how to play it. It was super fun.
I've seen it played before.
Young people taught me.
I watched Matt Corrigan stream Among Us once. He was doing some Twitch streaming. But thank you very much for the $2, Logan. What is by the way the link above? I think that the link that you tried to send did not work for whatever reason. So
I don't see it on my end.
And Popcorn Awesome says Satin Doll. So maybe Connor, do you know Satin Doll?
Written in 1953, but I do.
That's
know
not.
it.
Yeah, but what you
I checked.
Yeah, you could do the normal thing that we've been doing on the closeout of play a little bit of the end of it and then improvise over it.
I will play some chord changes that come of my own volition and imagination.
That are that might be inspired by.
It might be in C. They might start with a 2-5 in C major, and go up to a 2-5 in D. I don't know. It could go anywhere.
That's not right, is it?
You fear jazz because of its lack of boundaries. No, that was right.
Something like that.
And then down a half step. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later.
That's one of those tunes that I learned so long ago that I basically need to play the melody and listen to the chord changes, and then I'm good to go. Do you have those sorts of tunes where it's like you at one point knew the chord changes, but you need to just like check, and so while you're playing the melody, you're like listening, and it's just like, oh, that's that one chord that I forgot.
At this point in my life, that's every tune.
Yeah.
That's just like that's all it is at this point.
Like
my matrix of like chords that go in my head from jazz school is gone.
That reminds me of when. Do you know who Dave Clark is in Louisville?
Yeah.
So Dave Clark came to my high school when I was in high school. That was not a great phrasing of that. I was obviously in high school, but he came and played and with the Bellarmine jazz group, and I got to play something, and I wanted to play "There'll Never Be Another You" because that's what I was learning at the time. And he was just like, "Is that this one?" And then played like half the melody, and it's like, "Yeah, it's that one." And like at the time, that seemed so silly to me that you could know a tune but not remember the name of it. And now it's just like that's every tune almost.
Right, that's all of them.
So we got a couple other questions coming in. But Logan says, been watching for a long time, at least 4 years. Yeah, Logan, I mean, especially with the streams, Logan's been there basically since the start.
Wow.
I can't attest to your, actual video watching. Before we get to these questions, I do want to mention one thing that you may have seen on some platform. There are various platforms that you might have seen something about this. Posted in my story on Instagram, but I also posted I believe a community post on YouTube. I think that is the correct lingo. But I recently purchased an instrument. It has officially shipped as of today. And I'm supposed to get it Friday, so I should have it by the next stream. So, and the community thing, if you want to vote to see what you think the instrument is, feel free. It's already gotten a decent amount of votes, but I'm curious to to know what people think I might have purchased. So if you're interested in that, and I'm also going to be doing some. I'm going to do. I think hopefully before the next stream, but I have a busy weekend. Is doing a mystery unboxing. So if I haven't done that by next Tuesday on the stream, it will not be common knowledge what the instrument is at that point in time. It's supposed to be here Friday. I've got gigs Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's a little bit. It's going to be hard to fit in. Cenobite, I believe. Okay, last question. I have a huge problem with my mouthpiece placement according to my band director. My mouthpiece is barely on my top lip, and I move it down, and I lose all range and basically all playing ability. So, do you want to start with that one, Connor?
I'm reading the next part. It says, almost all on my bottom lip. I can't play pretty much at all when I put it where it's supposed to. Should I change it?
I hate to say this, but I'm not sure that us giving advice, never having heard you play, seeing what things look like, I worry about doing more harm than good via the internet.
Yeah. I just don't know if I can say either way. I can't even really conceptualize what it is, because there's a potential that like where you have it right now is fine and it sounds great and that's not a big deal. There's also a potential that like a change would merit improvement, but there's no way for us to have enough information. It's not like you didn't say enough, so we can't know.
Right. So I would say that your band director might be onto something, depending on if your band director plays a low brass instrument or a brass instrument in general. That you may seek a second opinion. That
we're checking out.
That might be something to consider and to kind of think about. Embouchure stuff or mouthpiece placement stuff. There are good things, there are bad things, but there's a lot of gray and there's a lot of room in between for something that isn't what is in every brass textbook, but works for you. I don't talk about it much, but my embouchure is technically incorrect, and it's basically always been incorrect, and it's kind of worked out. I've had people tell me that I should change it, and I didn't. Maybe I should have. Maybe I'd be so much better if I did. We'll never know. I guess there's always a chance that I could change it, but at this point in time, I don't have any plans to change it. So I guess I would love to answer your question. I would love to help with that. I would say, especially if your band director doesn't play a low brass instrument, I would seek a second opinion. This is why, having a teacher is a good thing. So let me see what this says here. So basically last year as a sophomore, only seniors beat me out of all states. So doing that would set me back extremely far. And that's one of those things. It's like it could set you back, but then you're better than ever, or it could set you back and you're never as good as you were. So again, I just think that it's something to tread lightly on, and you need to have someone close to you that hears it, sees it, and is very knowledgeable. And your band director might be that person. I'm not trying to downplay that. But, I guess what I would say, if it is a clarinet player telling me to change my embouchure on trombone or euphonium or tuba, I might be less inclined to listen.
Right. And I would probably start the conversation with like, yeah, absolutely. Like, thanks for the suggestion. And then maybe, find someone else, like a local pro or someone who's giving out private lessons, and ask a second opinion. But,
Right.
Your band director is probably looking out in your best interests.
Yeah. I don't think that they're trying to make things more difficult, but I've seen it go well. I've seen it go not so well with thinking about changes like that. So, let's say, can you please tell Keaton to practice his tuba so he can make All-State this year? Yes. Keaton or Keaton.
Practice your tuba.
Just make so you can make All-State.
Do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just practice the tuba. That's all you have to do.
Right. That's the only thing. So I just going back to the mouthpiece placement thing. I really think the best thing is to find a teacher, and I don't know where you live or if there's a great teacher around nearby, but that's the sort of thing I wouldn't trust to anybody personally. Mm-hmm. I would ideally go to someone who is very much an expert in their field. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say about it that can be helpful without being harmful.
Right.
Or
That's
potentially harmful is probably a better way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so again, make sure that everyone's voting to see what instrument I bought, and hopefully I really want to do that unboxing video and have that done. I think I should have enough time. It's just, it would be tricky if it comes late Friday night, or like Friday at night. Because I think it's supposed to be by 7 p.m. But we'll see. We'll see what the situation is.
Exciting.
So, let's see. I do take private lessons, but we put it off because of how well I was doing. It was like I was a beginner all over again. We've had many suggestions to change it, but I felt it's way too hard. So I think part of, I guess a question that I would ask is, does it seem like it's a problem to you? Does it seem like it's holding you back the way you're doing things now? I think that's an important question. Yeah, it's tricky because, that sort of stuff you could be not so great for a year, but then you could be great after that. Maybe that's what you need to do, and then everything will be unlocked. But again, it's just tricky. But yeah, we probably should close off this stream pretty soon here. Do you have any closing remarks, Connor?
No, nothing really that comes to mind. I thought it was a pretty productive stream, and yeah, good stuff.
Cool. Well,
sorry, I don't have anything profound.
I feel like it's a problem only because I've been told it's a problem by very good players. Yeah, that gets into really hairy territory.
It's tricky.
And one thing I definitely would say is, if they're good players who are in high school, I would not take their advice.
Right, like you can trust the adults in your life with embouchure changes, or at least like you can hear them out. But I wouldn't worry about other people of similar, if they're just getting started on their brass playing journey.
Yeah, I mean, again, what I'll say is I was told in high school that I should change things. I didn't. Mostly no one told me again to change things. Maybe that's why I don't play in a major symphony orchestra right now.
Yeah, who knows?
I feel like that's probably not it. But
right.
But everyone's situation is different, so.
Mm-hmm. So maybe try some things out, see what works, see what doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's never fun to be in like an embouchure suspicion sort of thing. Like I myself have never gone through an actual embouchure change, so I don't have that lived experience. But it's a tricky thing.
Yeah, and sometimes people see a problem and then they hear a problem. That's another thing too. Yeah, I mean, I messed around with trying an embouchure change, and then it was just like, yeah, this isn't gonna, I'm bad. I don't want to do this. So, yeah, we'll leave it there. I hope that that was somewhat helpful. I feel like that's as helpful as we can be without seeing it and thinking about it. Coming out of summer, I hadn't played tuba, and I didn't sound good for a week. And I got back, however, the initial week I sounded better than before the summer started. I thought that was, never mind, that's not relevant to that, I don't think. Just practice doing it. You don't always have to play with your top lip. Just try to get better and see it from there. Yeah, there are definitely different ways to go about it. But cool. Well, we'll call it there. And Connor, do you want to play us out with a little, something that you've come up off the top of your head that definitely isn't Satin Doll?
Yeah, it's a completely original improvisation based off of chords that no one is allowed to technically own. And, they might appear in songs like Satin Doll, so we shall see. Well, this has been a fun stream. Good talking with everybody. I'm going to turn my gain down now. Let me know how this sounds, Zach.
I think you can go up from there. Maybe split the difference.
How's that?
It's all right, I think. It might be a little low, but...
All right. Crank it a little bit.